Sometimes I struggle with if I open the news or if I see something horrific or some evil that's been done. Sometimes I read or I'll hear people say, pray for that person. And my initial knee-jerk reaction is, I'm not.
Whenever I have trouble loving someone, I think about how God deals with me and how patient He is with me, how forgiving He is with me.
What does that mean to show love? Because I think I'm guilty of this, where I convince myself that I'm being loving towards people, and where in actuality I'm being tolerant.
Sometimes we have to be, actually always, we have to be patient and we have to try one way or other to show kindness to people, and that's how we show love.
Love of neighbor. Nothing makes us like God, like forgiving the wicked and the wrongdoers. Welcome to Desert and City. Please share, like, and subscribe on YouTube and Instagram, and follow us on Apple and Spotify podcasts. If you want to learn more about Orthodoxy or visit a local Coptic Orthodox church, please see our website in our description below, desertandcity.com. I would like to welcome back Mother Theoliptie from St. Damiana's Monastery in Egypt, and I have the absolute pleasure of welcoming the very Reverend Father Anastasi St. Welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
The pleasure to have you. So I really wanted to kick off the discussion. So today we're going to be talking about communities and love of neighbor. And oftentimes we don't know what defines a neighbor, but I'd like to read a verse from Matthew chapter 22. Jesus said to him, "You shall love your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and great commandment, and the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets." So it is a pretty intense commandment and thing that was written to us. We have to love God and then next love our neighbor. So I often ask myself, who is our neighbor? Do we pick? So sometimes we enter into our silos or echo chambers, and we're very like-minded in the people we choose to be neighbors, our family, our friends, and that's who we espouse love to and who we convince ourselves that we're following this commandment. But Abuna, who is our neighbor?
Our neighbor can be literally our next door neighbor, but also the people that we see at the grocery stores, for students, other students, for workers, their co-workers. Anyone that we can come across, I think, is our neighbor.
Yeah.
We don't choose who our neighbor is. Sometimes our neighbors are good people. Sometimes they're difficult to deal with. But we have to show love to everyone.
Yeah. So, often, what does that mean to show love? Because I think I'm guilty of this, where I convince myself that I'm being loving towards people, and where in actuality I'm being tolerant. I'm accepting the person in front of me for who they are, and I'm being tolerant and I like them. But what does it mean to show love? And I could ask Omena, how do you show love in the monastic sense, and versus how do we show love in the world?
Okay, well, I think before I give you an example of how our nuns live together in love and harmony, I want to define, you asked the question, what is love? Like, how do we show love? And I'll take it from the Bible, because it doesn't matter whether we're monks or nuns or people in the world. The commandments of God are for everyone. Okay, so I just like to define what does loving our neighbor mean. And I would take some verses from Colossians chapter 3, verses 12 to 14. It says, "Therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, put on tender mercies," so mercies, kindness, humility, meekness, long-suffering, bearing with one another, and forgiving one another. If anyone has a complaint against another, even as Christ forgave you, so you also must do. But above all these things, put on love, which is the bond of perfection. Okay, so it doesn't matter whether we're monastics or people in the world, we have to love our neighbors with all those aspects of being kind. For example, okay, in the monastic life, the vow of monks and nuns is the same vow. And in the vow, we say that we love one another and we serve one another. So, for example, okay, if any nun, and we really do this at the Monastery of St. Damiana, we have 160 some more nuns. Anyone asks me to do something, if I really can have the time, I say harder. Even if I don't have the time, I say harder, and then I pray about it. And if I can, I will tell her or find someone to help her. We don't pick and choose who we serve. We don't pick and choose who we love. You know, when you put 163 nuns together of all generations, we're like 3 generations, okay? That we serve everyone, and not those who are in my generation I get along with, and not the younger one. You know, like even the older nuns, they serve us, and the younger ones serve the older ones. We are all with a heart to help, to serve. If you want any service, we are ready to, with our heart, with love and humility, to do what you want, as long as it's not something sinful, of course. Okay, to lie or cheat or anything like that. Okay, but any type of service, we are very equal, and our vow says we love and serve everyone.
So, how do we do that litmus paper of testing then? When you say we love and you serve, sometimes we don't, we serve and love because that's what's expected of us to do. And sometimes we do things in church or at home or at work with the mindset, oh, I have to be kind, I have to do this. And how do we transition from the I have to I want to?
So I will answer that question with an example.
Perfect.
We aren't going to be asked by God how our neighbor treats us.
Mm.
We're going to be asked by God how we treat them. And of course, love has to be in action, not just in word. So when I came back to the city, New York City, a tough city,
Yes.
I once went to a deli and I said, "Good morning." And the lady didn't respond. I thought she didn't hear me. I said, "Good morning," louder. And she looked at me and said, "It's the morning."
Typical New York answer.
And the first thing I did inwardly, I judged, because I said to myself, she shouldn't be talking like this to the customer. But
Yeah.
I swallowed it, or I bit my tongue, and I just made my order. And she was cutting fresh meat for me and fresh cheese. And then she said to me, "I cut a few extra pieces."
Oh.
So I said, "No problem." And then with the cheese, she said, "I cut a slice or 2 extra." So I said to her, "There's no problem if you cut extra. There will be a problem if there's less." And I said that and I smiled. And I got a smirk out of her.
Yeah.
And then I went to her the next day and I said, "Good morning." And she laughed and said, "Good morning." So sometimes we have to be, actually always, we have to be patient and we have to try one way or other to show kindness to people. And that's how we show love. Because it's lacking, especially in a tough city where everyone's, stressed out and anxious.
Yeah.
If we show a little bit of patience and smile and are present, and I think that's the most important thing, to be present to the people that we come across, that really goes a long way.
It's interesting that you say patience. Evangelos said once that God as king was love. And then next to him, his queen would be patience. Because you can't have love without patience. And Christ was always patient. He was patient with the disciples. When St. Peter cut someone's ear, he fixed it. He was patient when John and James, they wanted to call for fire to come down. And he was very patient with them and trying to explain how to be, because he was trying to change the rabbinical law of being so harsh to loving. And so I love that you said that about patience. And I think sometimes we're very patient with ourselves, but we don't give people the same opportunity, meaning we hold that bar and our standard much higher for others than we do for ourselves.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I think it's a human thing.
Yeah. Omina, did you want to share?
Okay, I'll tell you in the monastic life how the secret that we get along so well. I'm so serious. That's why I come up bursting with joy. We always, it's a general rule, or in the monastic life, not to upset anyone. Like, this is how we really do it practically. If you want to talk about how do you really get along with your neighbors, not upset anyone. For example, okay, and like what the nuns do to me, that's why I love them so much. They bear with me so much more than I bear with them. For example, okay, we have to cook, and we are 160 somewhat nuns, and we are broken down to 12, and each 12 cook for a week. So it's my turn to cook, my turn to cook for the week. And I tell the nuns, I said, like, I don't know how to help you cook Egyptian food. I only know how to eat. Okay, like that's what I tell them. Okay, and then Michelle is a book, and our offer is a backhaul.
So they must have loved when it was your turn.
No, they are so loving. Look how they bear with me. I'm serious, and this is love in action. It's something so small, but we do this about all these small things every day. Okay, so I said, if you want me, call me. Okay, and what can I do? I'm Chinese. I know how to chop the vegetables, because I don't know if you know how Egyptian people cut. Maybe at home you're Americanized. You use a cutting board. Maybe you people have cutting boards, but in Egypt, in the monastery, they don't use it. I don't know why. They take a bowl, like a plastic bowl, on their lap, and they take the cucumber, they call it the khiyar, okay, and the gazar, the carrots, and they take a small knife, the knife that we eat with, and they just sit on a chair without a table, and they cut and let it fall into the little bowl.
Yes.
So I see 5 of them cutting, because we have lots of vegetables to cut. We want to cook vegetable soup for 160 somewhere nuns for 2 days, because we cook every 2 days, not every day, okay? So I see 5 of them cutting, and they're sitting there for hours. Like, have you seen how Chinese people cook? Okay, we take a big knife and a wooden cutting board. So I told them, okay, buy me a Chinese knife. And got it for me in Egypt, and a Chinese cutting board that's wood. I don't want plastic, okay? And then they just leave it to me to cut, because I can cut, like I don't mean to show off, but with the grace of God, I can cut faster than 5 of them cut, okay? It takes me 2.5 hours. It takes them 5 hours, okay? Just learn something. I don't know anything about spiritual life, but when it comes to cutting food, I'm better than them, okay? So what I do, because I saw how my mom did it all my life when she cooked at home. I didn't have to cook, but, seeing, you kind of get it, right? So I'm just cutting all the khiyar. Like, they cut one by one. I take 4 of them.
Yeah.
Okay, they skin it though. I keep 4 of them, line them straight, and then with my knife, boom, 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 finish. Okay, I'm so serious. Okay, and so I'm cutting, and then the nun who's gonna cook, because I said, I'm not gonna cook. If you want me, call me. I will chop for you. If you don't, then don't call me. So what they do is, after I chop, and you know how fast I do it? I chop and I put a big, bucket on the ground, on a chair, and then after chop, like that, with my life fall right in.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even have to put it in, right? So then after I cut the vegetables, 2 of the nuns, they go and wash the vegetables before they make the soup. So when I'm cutting the carrots in Egypt, they're very fat and big and very hard. Not like the ones in America is thin. So it's very hard to cut it, and they want it in a cube to make soup. So, some pieces I cut like that, and some pieces come out big, and some pieces come out small. So then they said, the nun who's washing it, she goes through everyone, and she said, some pieces are too big. Can you please cut it smaller? Like, just take, like be careful. I said, harder. Harder.
Mm.
Okay, everything I say harder. Okay, harder means like yes, I will obey. Okay, so I try, but I'm not perfect. And somehow some pieces I thought I cut them into pieces, but they came out too big. So I just keep on cutting, and then after I finish cutting, it takes me maybe about 2.5 hours. Okay, I'm gonna take my cutting board and my knife, go to the sink to wash, and I'm finished. When I go to the sink, she's washing the the carrots that I chopped. And you know what I see her doing without her noticing? Because we have many sinks. It's like a restaurant type of kitchen. Like there's like 5 sinks, okay?
Okay.
So she doesn't see me that I'm a bit far away from her, okay? She is going through every one of them, and she has her small knife. And after she washed every one of them, those though are too big, she would cut them down to sizes, and she's praising me in front of all the nuns. All 12 of us are in the kitchen. It's like a restaurant, industrial sized kitchen. She's keep on praising me. Anti asawata, anti shatra. Like she always say, I'm great, I'm the best.
Yeah.
She's always praising me instead of embarrassing me. I am so serious. They are like this. For example, okay, if I'm helping them mop the floor, because every week we need to mop the corridor, okay? And if I don't do a good job, they never say you miss it. They will go and do it themselves. They never say anything to hurt me or anything. Like, and we are like that among ourselves. I am so serious. I am so serious. I work in sewing. I sew like Galibia, Abuna. I know how to sew this. Yeah, okay. But this is not from St. Damianus Monastery. Yeah, I can tell. So when I'm sewing, and I'm cutting the thread, the thread and the material we cut, it falls to the ground of the floor. And everyone's supposed to clean her own workplace. I don't. I think for like 27 years, I don't. And the nun who's sewing beside me, she's like 20 years older than me, and the other nuns, some of them are older. They come and clean beside, after I leave, after finish sewing, I just leave it. They come at night or come after I leave, and they clean the floor. Like you won't believe. Like she would just tell me one time, everyone cleans her own workplace, and I said, well, well, I don't. And then they will do it, and they never complain, and they say they will take the blessing. So I think that's like really little things that you can do for people shows love in your neighbors. Do it.
Yeah.
And not do anything to hurt them. And that's how we get along and really we're really happy group together.
The virtues of community is very important for monks, and also should be just as important for all people, for the lay people, for clergy, for all the faithful.
How do we bring that aspect into that sense of community into our home churches? Or as a youth, how do you bring that into your college group, whether it's interfaith, Christian, or not Christian?
I believe it starts with how we are as people, how we are at home, with our family members, with those on the inner circle, and then it extends outward.
Yeah, it's always the hardest to be patient and not judgmental of your inner circle. I find that to be the hardest, because sometimes it's easier to be good with everybody else, but your inner circle is what you struggle with the most, like your siblings, your spouse, your parents. Abuna, you've had a long journey. I met you, I guess, maybe 20 years ago now at St. Anthony's Monastery. But tell us your journey and how, you grew to love serving people from Queens to California to Hawaii, back to New York.
So I was born and raised here in New York City, and I lived my first 21 years here. And throughout my teenage years, I was very involved in church, but not only my parish, which was Queen's Church, but I made a lot of friends from nearby parishes. And I would visit my friends and go to their churches. And I always felt at home in those other parishes, as if it was my own home parish. And then I went to the monastery and I got the blessing of living with His Grace Bishop Karas of blessed memory. And I lived at St. Anthony's for 5 years. And I learned a lot during those years. And then I had the blessing of visiting St. Bishoy's Monastery, and His Holiness Pope Shenouda III of blessed memory gave me the option of living there at His Holiness's residence at St. Bishoy's. So I lived there for 1 year.
Oh, wow.
And I learned a lot from the fathers at St. Bishoy, especially the late Bishop and Abbot Ambassador Bamon. He was a saintly father.
Could you share one story?
Yes. When I went to Sayyidina for the first time for confession, I told His Grace that I hadn't confessed since Ambakaras passed away. And I asked His Grace if he can take my confession. And he said, "It's a blessing for me, Abuna." And so I confessed. And I went back 1 week later just to ask a question. And I was surprised. His Grace told me, "You know, I spoke with His Holiness about you. And I told him it's better for you to stay with us here than to go back to America." And I was surprised. And His Holiness said, "You can stay, but he wants you to stay at his residence. He doesn't want you here with the other monks. He wants to take care of you personally."
Wow.
And I felt that I was under the care of two great pillars, in our era.
Yeah.
His Grace Ambassador Bamun, and above that, His Holiness Pope Shenouda III. And so I felt very much cared for and loved by both of them. His Grace was very gracious and loving and caring. And so that's just one story.
Yeah.
And I had the opportunity of a lifetime.
Yeah, you did.
And then I was called to serve our church in Honolulu. And so His Holiness Pope Shenouda ordained me. And I went to Honolulu. I served there for 3 years. Then I had the blessing of St. Anthony's Monastery again after that. And I took responsibility for the monastery from 2006 to 2014 after His Holiness Pope Shenouda passed away.
Yeah.
And then the monastery became part of Los Angeles Diocese. And I went back to Hawaii. But instead of serving just the parish, that's when the whole world of mission and evangelism started for me. And I had the blessing of serving under His Eminence Metropolitan Serapion, who really gave me a lot of wonderful advice on how to go about missionary work. And then later on, we started a department for mission and evangelism. The acronym was DOME, Department of Mission and Evangelism in Los Angeles, because His Eminence liked the model of service that we were doing in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And then I was called back to New York. His Grace Bishop David asked, and I came back almost 3 years. For the last 3 years, I've been here in New York, focusing on youth ministry and also mission and evangelism.
So I was listening to something recently, and they were saying that the incarnation was an example, or was Christ stepping into our shoes of humanity. And God literally stepped into our shoes, but I often ask myself, how often do I step into other people's shoes? And it's easy to say that when you're trying to be empathetic with a friend, or you're listening to someone at work and they're, complaining or venting to you, and you have empathy for that person. but how do we behave when we know that the other person is unequivocally wrong, or, they're to be blamed for something that they did? How do we react in those situations when we're asked to step into shoes just like Christ stepped into our shoes?
God loved us while we were sinners, and he emptied himself. And he didn't wait for us to become good. He showed us goodness. So this teaches us to be, again, patient with people and show them what goodness is, because we don't know their circumstance in life. We don't know how they got to where they are. And there are many examples of saints who just needed to be led. They had good hearts, made poor decisions, but they had those who showed them the way.
Mm.
So we're called to show them the way, to preach the gospel. But preaching the gospel is more effective when you show them, not when you speak about it, because there are so many speeches, so many homilies, so many talks, but the example of a true Christian is what really can change lives.
I remember His Holiness Baba Shenouda said, we have to be careful about our words, make the words soft, and to be like a ball and not a cube. So that a ball, if it bumps into someone, it won't hurt that person, because we're not using words to hurt anyone, to scratch anyone, to hurt anyone. So be a ball, like a ball that if it hits anyone, it's not gonna form any bruises or scratches. That how can we, for example, really live it? There are many things, but I think one is be careful in our choice of words. Like I can say no to someone in a very humble, caring way that they'll say, okay, it's okay. I can take a no. Or I can say, no, it's just the way you say it. And people, I think when it comes to human interactions, we all have feelings, we all have a heart, we all have emotions that they can feel you. They can feel you. Are you kind? Like when I meet anyone, or if I happen to serve with anyone, I feel whether the person is really kind, really have the Holy Spirit in the person, that really care for people or caring for himself or herself. Like just, the heart to heart feeling that you feel with people. Are they loving? Are they humble? Not so much what they say, it's just their presence and their nonverbals, that you will feel it. And if you happen to discuss with them something that they don't agree, maybe you're serving with them, you want a basketball game next week, but I think, no, I want a Bible study. But the way that we kind of listen to each other, are we being a bulldozer, or are we being reasonable? And are we giving and taking and really seeing what is the best? I give sometimes and I take sometimes. Even relationships, especially with husband and wives, that God created them, Adam and Eve, to be partners, to honor each other, so that if the wife honors the husband, because he's kind, then he will love her. It's just mutual respect and care and honor in whatever you want to do. Because I think as human beings, even if you deal with people who are Christians or not, it doesn't matter. We all have feelings. That you be kind and you be nice and you be gentle, you be a gentleman, and you be sincere and you be honest, so that people, they love you and they can trust you and they're not afraid of you and thinking that you're that type to judge them or to criticize them or to check them out. Then they are on their guard and want to stay away from you. You have to be sincere, you have to be caring. Before we can love anyone, we begin with trying to care for them. Because love is it's a mother of all virtues. Like we're not going to get there right away. We have to be caring. We have to be merciful. We have to do little works of love, little words of high, like Abuna said, greeting one another, saying thank you. And Abuna has a very nice smile, gentle smile, that anyone sees it, feels calm and feels happy. Just all the bodily gestures, that all does something.
Thank you, Amina, for that. You were talking about Abuna Anastasi's demeanor. And I remember when I first met him, and I don't want to embarrass you, but I remember thinking to myself, I walked away from you and I said to my friend, I was like, if I could ever picture how Jesus talks to people, that's what it is. And I remember thinking, the way you speak I could imagine that's how Christ speaks because your demeanor was so calm. And people's personalities plays into how they come across to people. And I think sometimes if we work on having the grace of God within us, there was a book, it was called Solving the People's Puzzle. And it was a Christian psychologist who wrote it, but it was taking people's personalities and then adding God's grace to it was such a difference. Matthew was a tax collector and he took money from his own people. But with God's grace, that detail oriented personality and that attention to detail, his gospel has the most accounts of Jesus's miracles and parables. And with St. Paul, he went from being Saul the murderer to Paul to writing the majority of the epistles and being one of the greatest apostles that we know today. So I think having God's grace within us could help take our personalities, if we're calm, if we're meek, if we're talk a lot, if we're loud, boastful, extroverted, introverted, having God's grace can help us be a light to other people. And hopefully being that light to other people can bring people closer to Christ in Orthodoxy.
But we don't all have to have the same personality type.
No.
Because God uses every personality for his glory.
Yeah.
If we offer ourselves as vessels, I think that solving people's puzzle also means serving them in their need, whatever the need is. And His Eminence Metropolitan Serapion gave a great example of Christ healing the man born blind, not because he required anything of him. He didn't require faith in the beginning. He didn't require anything, but there was a need. And so he enlightened his eyes. And after the man started to tell others about how Christ healed him, and he was discriminated against, Christ found him, and then he led him to faith, thereby enlightening his life.
Mm.
And so this teaches us to try to find how we can help people in their need, as serious or mediocre as it may be, because sometimes people just need a smile. Sometimes they need an ear. Sometimes they need someone to be present to them. Sometimes they need resources and help with various things. But serving the people's need. But the goal isn't just to stop there.
Mm.
How, through that service, can we lead them to Christ and to faith in Christ? Of course, this is the work of God. It's not up to us to lead people to faith. It's like throwing seeds everywhere, but it's God's work.
Yeah.
To bring people to Him.
Yeah.
And for the faith to grow.
Yes, actually, I have a verse from Romans chapter 13, verse 8 says, "Owe no one anything except to love one another, for he who loves another has fulfilled the law." So we are owing, see, if the commandments of God says, love your neighbors as yourself, it's a commandment from God, that we do just owe one another love, even their enemies. It doesn't matter who or what they are or what they've done to me. They agree with me or I like them or hate them or whatever. I owe everyone love. If we really think of it this way, I owe everyone love. I must. I think that maybe it will really change us to do it. do it and ask God, God, you command us. We must love our neighbors as ourselves. It's a commandment. So that's what it means. I owe everyone love unconditionally. Okay, help me. I can't. Because really, to help people, it requires a good heart. And the good heart is one who really care for people to the point that I care for everyone the same. It's not something natural. Natural, we care for ourselves and those who we are close to. And enemies, we can't love them. Okay, that's natural, the human nature, because the human nature are falling. So in order to change, we must have God. We must pray. We must confess our sins to a priest and get the absolution. We must stay close to the church. We must go to church. We must pray the Mass a lot. We must pray the Agpeya, pray the Psalms, read the Bible, meditate, because that's the spiritual power in us to change us. Get Christ in me. So he changed my heart to, instead of hating someone or having grudges or not loving people enough or the same, that he changes me. It's no longer me living in me. It's Christ living in me because I've surrendered. I've given up. I'm fed up with myself. I can't keep your commandments and I'm not happy about it. I don't have peace when I don't keep the commandments of God. God, I surrender my life to you. And that's what the monastic life is about. It is about total surrendering. That monastics, like St. Anthony the Great, he wants to be perfect. If you want to be perfect, in the Gospel of St. Matthew, sell all that you have, give to the poor, and come follow me. It's about being perfection. Perfection is what really keeping the commandments of God.
Whenever I have trouble loving someone, I think about how God deals with me and how patient he is with me and how forgiving he is with me. And that helps me to love when it's difficult. And if I still don't love, then I pray for the person. And I pray that God would give me a heart after his own so that I can.
Sometimes I struggle with if I open the news or if I see something horrific or some evil that's been done. Sometimes I read or I'll hear people say, pray for that person. And my initial knee-jerk reaction is, I'm not. I won't. Because I'm so angry that they harmed other people. And it's not even tangible to me. It's not next to me. It's not affecting me in any way. But what do you tell people who say they see something? And, I always say, I went down the rabbit hole. I couldn't stop reading articles about this particular shooting or this particular person who did this. What do you do?
One of the saints said that the lions ate the lamb and then became lamb. And there are examples of brutal governors who later on came to faith and then they died as martyrs.
I think something my generation and the generations under me struggle with is a sense of entitlement sometimes. But I think it's also in Christianity too, because I always think I'm worthy of forgiveness, but other people might not be. And I think it's just a reminder not to be spiritually entitled. How do we open the doors of the church for new converts or the lost sheep or people who have felt, excluded from the church and are coming back?
That's a great question. Actually, we can begin by literally opening the doors of the church. We have a catechumen who entered the church just because the doors were wide open and he walked in. But when he walked in, he found a community. Yeah. He found people to teach him and to spend time with him and to explain things to him and to make him feel like he's part of the family.
Yeah.
And you find that some people come on their own. I have an example of one great servant who heard about Orthodox Christianity. He thoroughly studied on his own, and he came to the faith, and he's like a resource
Mm.
because he knows things that the typical Orthodox Christian doesn't know. Things that were said in the councils, who said them,
Oh, wow.
details.
Wow.
And this person in particular, we're preparing him to have a bigger service.
Wow.
There are some people that come to the church because of friendships. I know one young man who didn't know anything about the church, but he was always in the parks in the city playing ball. And so he met with one of the Coptic youth, and they became friends over basketball. And then after several times of, meeting each other, the Coptic Orthodox youth invited this new friend of his to church. And actually, I was visiting New York at the time. It was a time that I was serving in Hawaii. And I went to the youth meeting, and I was introduced to this youth. And then we all went out to eat afterwards. And shortly after that, he came to visit the monastery, and he spent some time in the monastery, learned a lot about the church.
Wow.
And he ended up going back home. He went to the army.
Oh, wow.
He was baptized in the monastery. And for a period of time, I didn't hear from him.
Mm.
And then years later, he called me and said, Abuna, I met someone, and just like you baptized me, I want you to baptize her.
Oh.
And so baptized her, married them. Years later, Abuna, we have a son. I want you to baptize our son.
That's so beautiful.
And so this all started with playing basketball in the New York City park.
Yeah.
Just meeting a good youth who's willing to share his faith. I have another example of a young woman. She came to the church in Hawaii one day. I thought that she was Coptic, but she wasn't.
Oh.
She heard about Coptic Orthodox Christianity on her way to Egypt. She sat next to a young servant, and she heard from him about the church and about the monasteries, about the convents, about the churches in Old Cairo. And she was going to Egypt to see the pyramids and the antiquities. And she was opened up to Christianity of Egypt. So when she went back home, she looked online to see if there was a Coptic Orthodox church on the island in Hawaii. And she was shocked. She didn't think that there was, but it was only a 20-minute drive from her home. And so she entered the church one day. I thought that she was just a visitor coming from, US. And I spoke with her in English. And she wasn't, Coptic, but I didn't know. And I asked her to help me with something. And she was happy to help. And then she came the following week, and I gave her another task. And she was very happy to help. It was only after a month that I found out she wasn't Coptic. She didn't approach communion. I didn't ask. And then I realized that letting people feel like they can offer something, that they're valued, that they have something to give, this makes them feel at home.
Yeah.
And so with time, she not only became a member of the church, but she became a board member of the church.
Oh, wow.
And just as active or more active than the other parishioners.
Wow.
So God has his ways of bringing people.
Yeah.
And he uses his children. I'm very happy with the youth who are willing to share their faith with other students and friends that they make at church.
Yeah.
And it happens often, and they come. But the common factor among all of those who remain in the church or who join the church are when they come to church, how are they received?
Mm.
Do they find people to welcome them? Do they feel cared for? Pastoral care is very important, but it shouldn't be just by the priest. Also, the servants and the other members of the parish have a role to make people feel like they're at home, that they're one of us. And so this really goes a long way.
Yeah. I think everybody is longing for a sense of belonging. And I think sometimes, even I have to be aware, am I being inviting, even if I'm having a bad day or whatever is going on? When I ask someone how you're doing, am I hoping they say good so I don't have to keep talking? It's being that empathetic and just inviting person to others and understanding as much as I'm broken, they're broken too, and seeing the potential in other people. But where does that line come when you have to have boundaries or when you are helping somebody or serving somebody and then you end up drowning a little bit? So we have to love our neighbors, but at what point or when do we start making boundaries with other people?
Two type of boundaries you can talk about. It may be my boundary, as you were saying, it will drown me, or maybe her personal boundaries that she feels like I'm getting too close. So, for example, like the boundary missing her personal boundaries, I should not ask things that's too personal if she doesn't want to say it. Like I should not ask, so are you married? Do you have children? Where do you work? How much money do you make a year? Like why do you not? Why aren't you happy? How's your husband? Does he love you? Like I'm sorry, I'm just saying, like there's personal boundaries that like I want to help the person, but not be nosy.
Right.
And not be like a detective or something. It's none of my business. So we need
Right.
personal boundary that I don't get too close. And if I say, hi, do you need help? Are you okay? She looks sad. If she said, no, I'm fine, then okay, fine. Next time I say her hi again. But if she says fine, don't push it. Don't push it. Offer help more than people want to take. Because I respect the freedom. And then the other boundary of my boundary is can I like do I have it in me to lift her up? If I'm in depression myself or anxiety myself, I may not be ready in the spiritual or emotional state to uplift her or listen to her problems because I'm too focused on my problems that I can't uplift someone. So spiritually and emotionally, am I healthy before I can save someone who's not healthy?
So I can introduce the person to someone who's able to help them.
Yeah.
I don't have to do it all.
Right.
We all are members of the body of Christ. Everyone has a gift.
Yeah.
So sometimes it would require that I, recommend the person to see someone.
Yeah.
It might be a Christian therapist.
Mm.
It might be Abuna. It might be someone who's experienced and who knows, what it is or has a specialty that can help the person who's in need. I think also it's important for us to be filled and to continuously grow in our spirituality, our relationship with God, to grow in our knowledge of God and to experience Him more so that we can give something. Or else, if we're on empty, then what are we offering?
Right. Right.
Because we don't want people to look at us. We're not trying to offer ourselves.
Yeah.
We're trying to offer Christ.
And sometimes, exactly, but sometimes the simplest people are the most that capture me. Like 2 years ago, I was in Canada. That was when I began. I'm preaching, and I was staying at this church, and it's a big church. There are many priests and many servants, and you know who impressed me? I'm so serious. It was the janitor man. You know, the man who comes at night at 11 or later at night and mops the whole, like, the church, vacuums, wash all the washrooms and everything. And I would just by chance bump into him on the elevator, and as I come back to live in the church, after I give talks, and he would come into the elevator with his cleaning equipment, like the mop and stuff, and his garbage. And I would look into his eyes, and his eyes were bloodshot. It's like 11 or 12 at night. So I know he's tired. He comes at night not because he's awake at night. He just comes to clean. And I would say hi to him, and he was so humble. And he was so polite. I just felt he did everything out of love and so perfect. And I was living there for 2.5 months, and the garbage can never overflowed. And there were many garbage cans. And the washrooms were always clean, the toilets, and he would clean also the women toilets, everything. The floor was always mopped. Like, I was just so impressed with his humility and lack of, how can I say, glory in front of people, because he comes at night when no one's there, but I'm there because I'm sleeping in the church and I have the key to go in, and I'll bump into him several times. And he was always tired, but you know what? He always did the best job.
God knows and loves those who do the little things with great love. We're not called to do great works, but to have great love.
If you talk to any woman who's married, they say that's how they know her husband loves her, when he empties the dishwasher, takes out the trash, brings down the Christmas tree and puts it up without asking. It's the little things that make big gestures. Abuna, could you share with us some of the mission projects that you have going on right now in our diocese?
With God's grace, we have 3 mission churches. First one started years ago, even before I came, in Maine. And we've had one of the fathers from New England going to Maine a few times a year to pray liturgy for them. We have most of the people there are converts. It's not a lot of people, but Abuna would go and pray for them maybe 3 or 4 times a year. Since I've come to the diocese, we've been consistently praying liturgy for them once a month.
Oh, wow.
And they have a consistent weekly Bible study. And so church there is slowly growing.
Where in Maine?
Bangor, Maine.
Bangor.
It's deep in Maine.
Yes.
It's about a 7.5-hour drive from the city.
Yeah.
And we also began a small mission church in the Bronx. We used to have a church in the Bronx, but Abuna George passed away around the time that COVID started, and then everything closed.
Yeah.
So His Grace encouraged to start a church, a mission church in the Bronx, but we chose a nice area in the Bronx called City Island.
Oh, very nice area.
Of course, I couldn't stay away from Hawaii, so I chose an island in New York City to serve at. But the people there are nice. You know, you don't really find crime there. There's about 6,000 residents on City Island, and a lot of people know each other. So we started with a small apartment, just like the church in Rome began with a house that was rented for 2 years. And then it became the largest church in the world.
Yeah.
So we rented an apartment, and we know many people in the community. We have a weekly Bible study on Fridays. We pray a weekly liturgy there. And we also have a bread distribution service there. We call it Our Daily Bread.
I like that.
And we've had several events at a local cafe. The owner encourages us to have events there. And, you know, the church is growing there in the Bronx.
That's amazing.
And then finally, we bought a Greek Orthodox church in Chicopee, Massachusetts. It's a beautiful church. We have weekly liturgy there on Saturdays, and it's close to one of the Coptic clubs in Amherst. It's a college over there. And some of the Greeks who were going to that church all their lives, that church existed for more than 100 years.
Oh, wow.
They felt really bad about, the church being sold, but many of them are continuing with us. And we have people from the neighborhood coming to the church. We've had several events there. The mayor has come.
Oh, wow.
The neighbors have come. And the church is growing there slowly but surely. So those are the 3 mission churches. Why I say mission churches? Because every church should have a mission.
Right.
But we're going to areas where there's not many Copts and trying to serve the people in the area and lead them. It's a preaching church, meaning you go out and you lead people into the church. And then when they are baptized and they grow in their faith, that they would become the servants and they would serve in all capacities, even for the priest to be someone who joined the church, not someone who was born into it, cradle copped.
Yes.
So that's the idea.
Yeah.
And so you don't really find cultural issues that can come up because sometimes without realizing, you'll speak a different language. And so the person won't feel like they're at home.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a teenager and I was excited to bring one of my high school buddies to Christmas liturgy. I thought that the sermon or the message, the papal message, was phenomenal. And I asked him what he thought. And he said, they lost me on the first line.
Oh.
So I said, why? He said, because it was written to the Copts in the land of immigration, or to my children in the lands of immigration. He said, I'm not an immigrant. He's not talking to me. He's talking to Copts.
Yeah.
And so these little things make a difference. The language.
Yeah.
And, what we say, like Omina was talking about, the words that we use, we have to be considerate.
Yeah.
So sometimes the culture can get in the way.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can add, it can enrich. It depends on how we are and how we treat people.
That's true. It's just that's a very good reminder. So just remember, ask someone out for coffee, offer them a ride home, send them a text, say good morning. Remember that Mbab Shoy was the only one who stopped to help the man on the road, and he was carrying Christ on his back.
You just mentioned Mbab Shoy.
Yeah.
And so the house of consecration we named after Saint Bishoy.
Oh, really?
Oh.
Because the characteristic of the ministry is washing the feet. For that reason, we pray the La'an prayers, the liturgy of the basin, blessing the water, not only on Covenant Thursday and on Theophany, but on the Feast of the Apostles. But in Saint Bishoy, you see a monastic that's washing the feet.
Yeah.
And so that's the inspiration. So may God grant us our Christian perfection by modeling such a saint and such a loving example.
Omena, can you lead us in our weekly 1-minute prayer?
Sure. Maybe for this week, because we're talking about service for neighbors, maybe we can say, Lord Jesus Christ, shine your face upon me and use me as your instrument to spread your faith and tender loving kindness to my neighbor. And you can maybe name your neighbor if you're praying for someone specifically. Grant me grace to care and serve him. Protect us from all harm and evil, and bind us together in your love for the glory of your holy name.
Amen. Thank you for joining us on Desert and City. I hope you enjoyed our very special episode today where we had 2 voices from the desert. Thank you for joining us. Please share, like, and subscribe on YouTube and Instagram. Follow us on Apple and Spotify podcasts. And if you are interested in learning more about Orthodoxy or wanting to visit a Coptic Orthodox church, please look in our description below for the link to our website, desertandcity.com.